May says no one will be left out of pocket when the UK makes its divorce bill offer to the EU. She's been meeting with the President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, at an Eastern European nations summit in a bid to put an end to deadlocked Brexit talks. Reports say May is getting ready to offer the EU almost £40 billion for the divorce bill.
Could it be €40 billion you're offering?
No, we've been talking about how we can progress the issue in relation to the financial settlement. I've set out the position. I did so in the Florence speech. I said that we would honour our commitments. I said that no country, no member state of the European Union need worry that they would receive less or have to pay in more in the current budget plan, and that we would honour our commitments. And that's what we've been talking about.
The bloc previously refused to move on to trade talks unless the UK ups its original offer of £20 billion and made some progress on the Northern Irish border. EU officials say the meeting between Tusk and May should help agree the, quote, choreography of a deal next month. Well, joining me now for more on this is UKIP MEP for the North East, Jonathan Arnott. Mr. Arnott, thanks for talking to us this evening. Now, £40 billion, that's a lot of money. In fact, that's double what she has previously offered. Is May doing the right thing?
No, she's not. In any negotiation, whatever you offer has to be getting something back in return. Now, it seems to me that throughout this negotiation process, the UK has been the ones that have been giving, the European unions have been the one who are taking, and that's not what give and take is supposed to be all about.
What about this no-deal scenario? Would the UK be able to cope without a deal? It's been described as an unthinkable outcome. What's your take?
I believe the UK could cope without a deal. I'd rather have a deal. You know, I'd rather have tariff-free access to EU markets, and I'd rather the EU companies have tariff-free access to our markets. You know, that's all about being good neighbours. I'd rather have that deal. But to put it into perspective, you're only talking about a very small percentage. You're talking about, on average, something in the region of 3 to 4%. And if that were to happen, then, of course, more would be being paid into the UK exchequer than would be being paid out by Britain. So effectively, we would at least in strict financial terms be net beneficiaries. Now, that is not something that I want to see, because it wouldn't be very good for British companies. But the EU would effectively be paying us more than we'd be paying them. So that's a very bad outcome for the European Union as well. So I don't think that we should end up in that position. What we must do, though, is actually be prepared to stand our ground, be firm in negotiations, and tell the European Union very clearly what we want across a whole string of areas.
You're not in government, so I can ask you this question, and I think that you might be able to answer. What's your figure? What's the figure that you think it would be worth paying the EU to strike a deal?
Well, you have to see what you're getting in return, don't you? And the problem here is that you can't talk money unless you know what the response is going to be from the European Union on trade. Because what Theresa May is being asked to do now is to give the money with no guarantee of anything in return. And that's where there's a big problem. So I think we need to see some movement on the other side. We need to see some compromise. We need to see some give and take. But the starting basis position is that there is no legal obligation for the UK to pay the European Union anything significant at all. So without a legal obligation, every concession that the UK makes must be a concession with something coming back. And the UK needs to send that message very clearly and very firmly, and basically call the EU's bluff on a no-deal scenario, because that isn't in the UK's interests, agreed. But it's not in the European Union's interests either. So what we want is a little bit of fairness in this negotiation process.
OK, there were two conditions, weren't there, that the EU were talking about. They were talking about that the divorce bill wasn't enough, but they were also talking about progress on the Northern Ireland border. No progress has been made on the Northern Ireland border. Is that really where the sticking point is, do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, that's not for the want of trying, I don't think, from the British government. They have been trying on that. But let's put this into perspective here, because we've had a common travel area between the UK and the Republic of Ireland going back to the 1920s pretty much, with little bits of suspension here and there. But that common travel area between the UK and the Republic of Ireland predates our membership of the European Union. So when we leave the European Union, it isn't something that should be as big a deal as all that. And of course, the Republic of Ireland is not in the Schengen area either. So we don't have quite the same issues in terms of people being able to simply walk across border after border after border with no checks. When they come into the Republic of Ireland, there are checks.